Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Seth Joyner podcast. Special because today we're going to be talking about mental health. Everyone somehow, some way is affected or knows someone that's affected by mental health. And Recovery Unplugged is one of my partners in Seth Joyner 59 Media LLC. All of my shows, and I've got, a couple of special guests. One guy you guys know, you all know, Chris Long won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. Want to bring him in. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
Seth, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, glad to have you on today. And then I want to bring on Riley Osbourne. Riley works with Recovery Unplugged. And Riley, tell everybody what your official position is with Recovery Unplugged.
Man, I'm blessed to be able to fly around the country and help people find a solution to the challenge that they're having. My technical title, I'm the Chief Growth Officer. All that means is I get to go and try to bring people closer to a solution for whatever they're struggling with, whether it's addiction or mental health challenges.
Got you. So listen, I don't want to be the total driver in this thing because, Riley, you lived in this world. Chris, I know that you're a major advocate for mental health. And, we've had some players that played for the Philadelphia Eagles that have experienced, some situations. I'm from a different era, so a lot of the mental health realization type things are kind of new to me. So this is just as much of an education for me as it's going to be, for my viewers. So, Chris, I want to start with you because, a lot of people look at professional athletes and think they got it all together, that there's nothing going on within their org, they're making a ton of money and everything should be great. We saw a young man earlier this year, Marshawn Nealon of the Dallas Cowboys, took his own life. And I know that you played with a couple of guys, I'm not going to name them, that had some issues during their time of playing. Speak to, if you will, how the transformation has taken place in the sports realm opposed to how it used to be, Superman, he bleeds only on the inside, never on the outside.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic of discussion, especially coming from people like yourself and I and guys that played in the league because, everybody kind of holds us to a standard of, as you said, nothing could ever be wrong with this person because everything on the surface is going right. And, I don't know how many anecdotes or examples we need of, especially men, I feel like, that have everything going on the surface. If you watch them swimming on the surface, they look smooth and like everything's easy. And then under the surface, they're fighting for their lives. So I think, certainly my experiences as a player highlighted that for me. In retrospect, looking back at it, I wish we were having these conversations when I was a rookie in the NFL. There were things that I would have done totally different. I've grown a lot since I played football, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think you can go one or two ways when you retire. I mean, certainly go a lot of ways, but a lot of guys, struggle with the isolation. They struggle with the major life change. You struggle with not being a part of a group, like a tribe. You know what I'm saying? Where you walk into the building and you've got 52 brothers that it's not all just like playing video games and having fun or going out to dinner. It's being held accountable and having a purpose. And so, when you're confronted with that major life change, I was forced to really look inward a little bit and work on some things in my life and get to know myself a little bit better. And as I stood there looking backwards, and I still do as I'm continuing to figure my life out, I just wish that journey had started a lot earlier, you know, and I know I'm not the only one. I know there's other players that look back and say, man, I wish I had sports psych. Man, I wish I had been diagnosed ADHD when I played. You know, I wish I'd have maybe sought some sort of, you know, some sort of solution, whether it be a medication or therapy, which I'm in now as a 40-year-old man with 3 kids. And a lot of people, I gotta, you know, when you're the center of your universe, as a lot of dudes are, where it's like, there's a lot of people depending on you and there's a lot of people pulling at you. You're kind of the last person anybody ever considers.
Right.
So the reality is you kind of gotta put your life jacket on, or, you know, on the plane when they say if it's depressurized, you got to put your deal on first. And I think the problem is the framing is, you know, if you work on yourself, it can come across selfish, but it's not. I'm working on myself so that I can be, you know, I can be accountable to my kids and my wife and the people at my business and all the people that depend on me. So, yeah, I mean, like, I also think it's coinciding with a lot of people saying, hey, men are struggling, you know, so I think it's a really good intersection that athletes can jump in the fray on.
Raleigh, fill us in on your side of it, because obviously, you know, you work as an advocate for Recovery Unplugged, but along the line, you know, now that listen to what Chris is saying, I realized that many of the guys back in my day, you know, had mental health issues. We just dealt with them in a different way. What's your experience and how it's affected you and how it's led you to where you are now with Recovery Unplugged?
Yeah, no, and I think Chris, I love that you find yourself, you know, as a 40-year-old man that's, you know, actively working on yourself, not just for you, but for your family. And I'm a big guy, not nearly as big as the two of you. I know that, right? I'm 6'2", 240. You guys, I've hung out with Seth, so I know he's got me beat.
He's a big
those
dude.
hands of his are twice my size. But for me being a big guy, I'm the last person that wants to ever admit that there's something wrong, right? That I'm not 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And, you know, for me, I never played at the level that you guys did, got to play in college. And I experienced that identity loss, I think is what I heard you talking about, Chris, in a pretty meaningful way of just having, you know, your entire purpose on this planet being ripped away from you, right? Whether that's age or injury or life circumstance, whatever it might be. And, you know, that set me on a journey at 19 years old to get sober. And I'd gotten hurt and found out that I love the way that pain pills made me feel. And that doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, here we are. If I stay sober another 8 days, I'll have 12 years sober myself. And through that journey, it hasn't just been you quit taking drugs and your life gets great. You know, if you sober up a horse thief, you still got a horse thief on your hands. And, that's, you know, I'm still a work in progress, right? And so in my world, what I get to see is when people really begin to, when they take that first step of I need to change something, whatever that something may be, right? What if it's they need to take a step back from that C-suite role that they have that has just burnt their life to the ground, burned everything out inside of them to be able to be passionate in life, or maybe it's they are struggling with a substance use challenge. They're drinking too much, or they did have an injury, and that's turned into something more aggressive. And that first step's always the toughest one, right? Really getting honest with yourself and saying something's got to change. And typically that comes from a family member, it comes from a wife, a partner, kids potentially. It comes from that circle around you, the brothers that you have, or the sisters, saying, "Hey, we see something off, and we got to do something different." And I think those accountability partners are extremely important. And I always like to make sure I tell people if they've got a family member that's struggling, you know, our job as the accountability partner in that person's life is to not love our loved one to death. And what I mean by that is allowing them to continue living the way that they're living isn't of benefit to them, right? Our job is to step in and say, enough is enough. We're going to do something different. We're going to try something different. And It's not always the easiest conversation. It's typically one of the hardest conversations anybody's ever going to have with a loved one. And I know you guys have had those combos with guys you played with or inside your own families, right? And it's somebody being willing to step up to the plate and say, we're going to have this conversation. So in my world, that's step one. And then from there, the journey can be really, really simple. But I think one of the grossest statistics out there in the behavioral healthcare world is when somebody, most people don't have insight into what it means to need to go to treatment. If you've got depression that's keeping you from leaving your house or taking a shower, if you got anxiety that's stopping you from getting in your car, if you've got PTSD that's forcing you to not be able to sleep, or if it's an addiction challenge, most people don't know where to begin, right? And so what do? We all go to our computer or pull our phone out and we type in treatment near me, or anxiety treatment near me, or addiction treatment near me. And that really gross statistic that I was referring to, 84% of the time, people end up at the first place that they click on. And that first place they click on is the people that are willing to spend the most money to pop up at the top of that search, not the place that has the best clinical programming or the most dialed in doctors from a medical perspective, or the most cutting edge treatment modalities. It's the person that's willing to spend X amount more dollars than anybody else to be the first place that person calls. And so my objective is to, shift that dynamic and really help people understand that this conversation has taken place and there's experts in this field. You don't got to trust the Google overlords that are out there, right?
Yeah.
And shifting this into much more of a conversation that people can have with one another, instead of ending up at the place that's willing to spend buku bucks just to treat patients that are looking to make money, right? Like, everybody's in business. We all want to keep our doors open, but there's a big difference between doing the right thing and doing the right thing for yourself. And for yourself, I mean the business, and really just trying to pad your own pockets, right? Because there's plenty of ugly characters out there from a provider perspective. So that's where I think we can really make some leeway, is helping people understand that there's experts out there. All you got to do is reach out. Don't go to Google.
Yeah, don't go to Google. Don't go to one of these websites where, don't go to Reddit for your mental health advice. Don't go to, what's the other one? Quora. You just got people in there kind of. I think what you said is great, because number one, somebody's got to talk to you and say, hey, like, you're going down the wrong road. But number two, that person has to be ready to receive the information. So, I've been in that seat where I'm like, hey, I've got to go talk to a friend or a buddy and shoot them straight. And you walk away so disappointed sometimes. You're like, it's like they're not hearing me. But at least you said something. They heard you. You know what I mean? And it's about that person taking ownership ultimately, in my opinion. I'm not a professional, but in my opinion, it is about that person taking ownership and saying, hey, enough is enough. I have to change. Because none of this happens for anybody without changing either habits or thought, your frame of mind, or what you're surrounding yourself with, or a job, or whatever. One thing I've learned as a 40-year-old, and Seth, you got some years on me, and you've been through where I am as a retired football player and finding your way. And one thing I noticed is, man, life is about changing and adapting, and it's hard. It is hard sometimes. And I just went through that big change 7 years ago. It feels like yesterday though. And, I'm still dealing with peeling back the onion of who am I? You know what I'm saying? I know exactly who I am in all the ways of my values and all that, but what's the best version of me look like? Because I think football can kind of get in the way of you working on yourself. It also enables you, where it's I was going through the same stuff that I'm going through now, but every day I had this I felt like I had this gun to my head to go perform. And so there's no time to think about that. You just struggle with it. You don't reflect on it. There's no time to change. So, I feel like this is all really important, and people have to be able to go to their friends and try to hold them accountable and let them know that maybe you don't see it now, but you're headed down the wrong path.
Yeah. And Chris, sometimes unfortunately, we are just planting seeds, right? That hopefully one day will sprout and grow into that person changing. But I'm a firm believer that you hit rock bottom when you stop digging, right? There's no universal rock bottom that someone has to hit for something to change, right? It doesn't have to end in a suicide attempt. It doesn't have to end in a trip to the hospital
Yeah.
for alcohol poisoning. Change begins when you decide that it does. And so you're 100% right. And I always like to make sure I emphasize that for people, because sure, we do know that mental health is a challenge that people don't have control over, and addiction is a challenge that people, once they cross that barrier, don't have control over. But you 1000% are capable of making a shift, right? If it's mental health related, right? Adding medication in, adding in a team of people to be able to speak to and rely on, or addiction wise, getting off of the substance and keeping it out of your body. That's a decision. There's no cop out. There's no, oh, well, they're sick. No, absolutely not. We have to, begin to really help people understand, like, you can't change 1000%. And I love what you had to say. The saying I love about change is the only thing in life that is constant is change, right?
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow,
Yeah.
no matter where you're at in your journey.
So two-part question. This first part for you, Riley, because we're talking about change, mental health, and because I got Chris on the show, a lot of times this all centers and revolves around football players and guys. So Riley, talk to me about mental health with women, because that's got to be a major talking point as well. Because when you talk about mental health, most of the time the arrow is pointed at guys, but women kind of go through the same things. And then Chris, on the other side, you talked about, the transition from football. And when you live in that locker room, it's just testosterone, times 1,000. Talk about how we can get guys to begin to open up about their problems. Because, when I was coming along, it was like, it's my problem. Can't nobody fix my problem but me. There's no need of me going to sit and laying on the couch and talking to a therapist, because they can't fix what's going on inside of my head, what emotionally is going on with me. And I see too many guys, leaving us, Chris, on the football field and in life, because we're too ego driven to ask for help, and it's like, man, if dude would have just called me, if we could have just had a conversation, he'd still be here. Or, this situation didn't have to take that turn. How do you get guys to just open up and begin to talk about it in a way without feeling like the world sees them as weak? Raleigh first.
Yeah, listen, the really unfortunate reality is, inside, I'll use Recovery Unplugged as my example and my data reference for this. But our mental health facility is over 60% female from the patients that we're treating inside of there, and the mix is young ladies that are struggling with bipolar disorder and they're trying to get medications figured out, borderline personality disorder, and also trying to get medications figured out. Then we step into the more, mid to upper 20s, early 30s, and those are women that are struggling with, oh Lord, the word just left my head. Postpartum depression after they've had a baby. That's a huge one that I think we're beginning to hear more about from a media perspective. It's still a little bit of a buzzword, but the reality is that women are really, really struggling in regards to that postpartum depression aspect. And then we fast forward a little bit further, and then we've got women that are struggling with two things, right? Number one, they've been a stay-at-home mom for 18 plus years, 18, 20, 25 years. Kids are out of the house. They are going through the same challenge and transition where they've lost their purpose and their identity, as we're talking about for guys in the league, right? And then we've also got women that climb the corporate ladder and get all the way to the top, and then they find themselves just burnt out because they've been playing ball with a bunch of dudes, making sure that they were always competing at a higher level. And so it's mental health doesn't care what color you are, how old you are, where you come from, what nationality you may be. It doesn't discriminate, right? Mental health is a challenge that affects each and every human on this planet. It does in different ways for different people, but I do think that the one benefit that women do have is they typically are more willing to step into that softer side of themselves and saying, you know what, I'm struggling, I'm not okay, I'm going to talk to people about it, and I'm going to be open. And so that's what I think has driven that census for us to be heavier female. They're more willing to seek help for the challenge that they're seeing, but the road for them is just as rocky as it is for the guys, right? And the reality is that being able to support women, especially with the more new age modalities that are available, whether it's EMDR therapy or brain spotting therapy, TMS therapy. There's some really amazing things out there for ketamine and Spravato therapy. Spravato is a version of ketamine, but it gives the brain the ability to actually heal itself. And I think we're just beginning to understand from a scientific perspective exactly what medicine is capable of, and what we define as medicine, I think, is something that we're on the cusp of really beginning to uncover. And so I'm excited for the transitions that are coming down the pipe for the next 5 years. I think are going to be really, really awesome, especially as AI helps us move quicker and faster from a medication testing perspective. But there's the only difference between men and women in regards to mental health is who's willing to say I need help first. And typically, in my experience, it's been women are the ones that are throwing their hand up and saying, hey, here I am.
They're better about it, for sure. Yeah.
They're okay not being 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right?
And that's it. And to answer Seth's question, I think as professional athletes, and I'm not saying professional athletes are the only quote unquote alpha males out there. There's a lot of damn alpha males out there that qualified badasses, right? But I kind of think, and also what's been good for me is with my foundation, we work with veterans a lot, and it's not always like, hey, we're trying to help veterans with PTSD or something. Like, we're doing work together, right? Like we're giving those guys and women a purpose again, something to get behind, albeit it's charitable, but like, we're going to go climb Killy in 2 months for charity and be up on the mountain for a week with 4 football players, 4 veterans, and you get close with those guys. So number one, you got to have groups that you still got to have teams. When you get done playing, you got to have teams. And it's been helpful to talk to veterans because while I don't hold ourselves the same regard as a veteran, those guys are like literally war heroes. Like, a lot of the same issues exist in that population where it's like the loss of identity, the loss of that team feeling, the loss of like, waking up every day and having something that you have to do, that you feel pressure. And some days you're like, damn, I'm going to burst at the seams. I'm under so much pressure, but it's a good pressure in a lot of ways. So it's been great working with those guys. And I think the main thing is no matter what you are, or what you do, like, you don't need to be worried about being weak to do it. And I guess it's easier for me as a football player because I know I'm not weak. Like, I've done hard things. I've played hurt. I've shot my ankle up for 3 months at a time and gone out and played. I've played with a fractured sternum. I've been in fights. I've played in a 4-eye. Seth, like,
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I did my time. And so it's not hard for me. And this is just the way I think. Like, asking for help is not going to make me weak because I'm not weak. What I am is I might have bad habits. I have, mental health issues. Like I said, I've had ADHD my whole life, struggled through school with it, struggled through my teenage years. I struggle with depression now. And when I was, a teenager, I didn't know what was going on, but I was swimming just to keep my head above water. Never been on medication, nothing. And when I played, the struggles I had, sometimes I masked it with substance abuse, whether it was alcohol or whatnot. So, pills, the pain pills, like whatever. I think you have these aha moments in your life where if you wait long enough and you fight long enough, you're going to have them, and you're going to be like, I could, if I do this thing, if I have the willpower to do this thing, I can change everything. And nothing changed between 6 months ago and now. It's just a set of circumstances kind of open the door for you. And it's your choice whether you walk through it or not. And this is why, like, of course, like I have empathy for myself. I have empathy for people who are dealing with struggles, but and it's not a choice to feel bad or not feel bad, but there are choices you make that can improve your lot in life and habits that you can build. And so I think, like, telling players that, number one, you're not weak. Look at all the shit you've done your whole life. Who's ever going to call you weak? Who's ever going to call you soft, man? Like, come on. And number two, I actually struggle more with being cynical. Like, when I have a problem, it's not that I think I'm weak, but like when I'm at my lowest, I always say, and I do this for other guys that, like, I got a couple old teammates. I'm like, you call me any time of night. Put my number at the top. You call me 3 a.m. I've been on the phone with teammates for 2-3 hours at a time, like falling asleep. But buddy's going through a hard time, and I'll get the, hey, you do it to you call me too. I never call, and it's a shame I don't. And it could be 2 weeks from now, I could be in a bad spot, and that voice in my head's not going to be saying you're weak. The voice in my head's going to be saying that person can't help you, and that's a problem. And so I don't think it's all weakness. I think sometimes it's cynicism. It's and I think for former players, when people tell you enough that you're broken and that your life is going to end like this or that, they don't tell you stories like Seth's story or my dad's story or guys that played a long time in the league or are cogent and lucid and just bright guys that at least on the surface seem like they got their shit together. You only hear about the guys that lose their minds or abuse substance or this, that, and the third. And I just would, I would stress the guys that played that you're not broken, and like you can make choices that can improve your lot in life, and nothing's guaranteed. But I feel like lifestyle is a big part of it. So, if my buddy called me today, he's like, hey, I'm really struggling. What should I start with? Number one, you need to go talk to a therapist. It would help. It doesn't mean you need to like OD on going to therapy and everything. You need to frame in the context of like, well, this is what my therapist says. I think you can do that too much. I think it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes. But number two, you need to exercise. You need to stay active. You need to keep your social bonds. You need to get your ass up in the morning. You need to go to bed at night, something I always struggle with. I'm an insomniac. So there's all these things. You need to avoid alcohol. You need to, whatever it is, man. Are you like me, Seth, where you can't sleep?
Yeah, if I get 4 or 5 a night, that's a lot.
Yeah. So, and you know how hard it is. And, there's also a lot of pressure, man. And you can feel like you're on an island because people don't understand. Just like I wouldn't understand, the pitfalls of doing something else for a living. Mm-hmm. But nobody feels sorry for you because you made a lot of money and you play a kids game. But what they don't understand is I still going 1-15 for 8 years of my career, going 2-14, going 7. I wear that. And I won 2 Super Bowls and it feels like it didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you who you are. And it's hard for guys that had experiences in their careers to let go of those things. And I still to this day can't let go of certain things that I things that I fell short on or things I wish happened differently on the football field in my career. Or like, I wish our team was better, this, that, and third. I still dwell on shit. So, and I'm thoughtful enough to be having this conversation with you guys, and I still struggle with it. Mm-hmm. So I just tell you, the guys that are isolating themselves, it's scary, man. Like, and the message would be, you're not broken and you're not weak. You're definitely not weak. If anybody calls you weak, the joke's on them. I played with some real alpha males in my time, and not all of them are doing great. And I think isolation is a big part of it. And I think, like, you got to realize you were a Ferrari when you played, man. If you don't run your Ferrari, like, you got to accept you're a little different than everybody else. Mm-hmm. I was just at a banquet with all these UVA players and talking about the transition. When guys that don't go play in the pros, I go, you think you're going to be good getting on the bike for 30 minutes a week or taking a walk You're not, dude. You're wired to be a certain way. You need to embrace that in certain areas of your life. You need to go, man. You need to run that Ferrari. So I think it's talking to each other, it's talking to a therapist, and it's little habits that, like, man, you know, it's amazing sometimes like what one little habit can be doing, whether you're not eating right or not getting enough sleep, like, or you're not getting your hormone panel checked or whatever it is. Like, we have so many resources now. And I never thought I'd be the guy that said I wouldn't go to the doctors, but I'm like already that 40-year-old that's like, I'll get it checked out. Like, I'm that. I used to look at my granddad and be like, man, he's so stubborn. I'm never going to be like him. Now my wife's the one that's like, you need to go get that checked out. You need to go. So that kind of feeling of like, it's not going to matter. You need to kick that, whether it's calling your friend at 2 a.m. or going to the doctor. Like, you got a shot at this thing. And so do I. And so it's good to remind yourself that.
After 25 plus years being retired, man, let me tell you, there's some things that I still can't let go on the lighter side. Okay. I still hate the Dallas Cowboys with all my being. Okay. And there was a point in time where it's like, just to see some of those guys would move me the wrong way. But I'm going to tell you something crazy that happened this summer. I was at a golf event and I was at a dinner, and Emmitt Smith walked in. Those old feelings started to come up. But then he sat down at my end of the table and we started talking, man.
Yeah.
And we got done. We went to the bar. We had a drink. We sat outside and had a cigar. And for the first time, I was like, you know what, man? He ain't all that bad, man. He's a cool dude. So when you talk about not being able to let shit go,
Yeah,
I understand you implicitly. Not only stuff on the field, but even stuff off the field, because, you know, in our day, it's different than today, Chris, because these guys now, they want to swap jerseys. They kiki and ha-ha after the game, win or lose. And back in our day, guys didn't do that, man. I mean, there was a genuine hatred that you had for your opponent, and you wore that. You carried that all the time. So when you brought that up, that just like, you know, open up this flood of emotion, because I'm like 5 years ago, if I saw a Cowboy somewhere, I'd be more than I was to say hi.
I
man.
think Eagles fans are pretty excited to hear that, Seth. But hey, Emmitt's cool though. I've been around him. And then the funny quick story is my dad, who's like you guys, you know, cut from the same cloth, the whole deal. But, you know, one time he told me a story. He's like, yeah, that's generally true. But my roommate, Greg Townsend, if you remember Greg, I guess he, Joe Green, he went to college with him or something, or knew Joe Green, or maybe Cedric Hardman. You remember Cedric Hardman?
Yeah, I was about to say Townsend is a lot younger than Joe.
Yes. Green. So it was Cedric Hardman. He goes, we were roommates. Steelers come to play. And Saturday night, Joe Green comes over for dinner. He goes, it was the best day of my life. He goes, I put all that aside because that was my hero. So, you know, it's funny hearing, like, when you watch The Last Dance, hey, we hated each other. We all hated, and it's true. But Jordan and McHale were playing golf during the playoffs. It's just the funniest side, dude. You got to watch that thing. You get a kick out of that.
That was crazy. So, okay. Each of you talk about, I heard you mention a little while ago, Chris, loss of identity.
Yeah.
And Raleigh, how you deal with people you've experienced, they lose identity. Fortunately for me, I've never been one of those people that's kind of had that, because when I retired, you know, my mentality coming in was, I was Seth Joyner before I got to the NFL. I'm going to be Seth Joyner long after I leave the NFL. I was secure in myself to a certain extent, so there was not, you know, like, I didn't identify with being a pro football player like some guys do, and they struggle because when they're either done with the game or the game is done with them, it's hard for them to let go of the game for multiple reasons. Either they didn't accomplish the things, you know, in their career that they wanted to accomplish, or they weren't ready to walk away from the game, and the game was done with them. And then they lose all that attention. When when you're a player and you're in your town, Everybody knows who you are. You go to the bar, you go to the restaurant, you eat for free, you drink for free. Everybody's making a big deal about you. And the minute that you're done, it's amazing how quickly people forget about you. And a lot of guys struggle with that. They struggle with that loss of identity. And people, even Riley, in the regular world, when they transition from one place to another, or they have, a catastrophe in their life where they maybe lose, some wealth, or get in trouble and lose a certain, group of people that they've been attached to, how do you deal with that? Because a lot of people really have major issues with identity loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately the answer to the question is not well, right? Most of the time people don't deal with it well, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? Our brains are all kind of set up the same. Some move a little quicker than others. Some are, extremely good at being an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. I don't think you can flip the two of them, right? The brains are wired differently, but same concept applies to everyday life, right? When there's somebody that, like I said, a mom that has an empty nest, and she's trying to figure out what the heck she's supposed to do with her life, or somebody that loses a career, for example. They've been up at the top and their company folds, and now they have no idea what they're going to go do. Or entrepreneurs are one that I see with pretty high burnout rates, and I don't mean that they crumble, right? I mean that they just do exactly what you referred to, Chris, which is just put your head down, nose to the grindstone, go, 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 because there's people that are relying on them, their family, their employees. And then whenever they stick their head up for some air, it's, they take a look down or take a look back, and they realize how rough and tough things have been for them, and I think that unfortunately, yes, our world has changed, right? Like the fact that the three of us are sitting here having a conversation about mental health is three dudes that most people would consider, tough guys, is just proof in the pudding that our world has changed from where it was, even 10 years ago. But it hasn't changed all the way. There's still that taboo that's in place in regards to having this conversation, even though we're not having a deep conversation of any sort. We're just talking about the fact that people struggle, and the struggle is real. The struggle is called life. We're all in it. How do you begin to kind of navigate it a little more effectively? And so I'm a big believer in a 5-pronged approach to wellness. And Chris, you really kind of highlighted this already for me, but I add words to it. And for me, it's spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, and financial wellness. Those 5 pieces, right? If I can be doing really solid on at least 3 of those, I'm having an awesome day. If I'm doing great in all 5, I am crushing it. But most of the time, I'm trying to keep 2 of them together. I'm trying to get to the gym at least 3 days a week. I'm trying to make sure I get to church on Sunday. I'm trying to make sure that emotionally, I'm not being short and snippy with my wife, and I'm trying to be gentle on myself. Financially, I'm trying to make sure that I am not living paycheck to paycheck. And then the reality is I'm never 5 for 5, right? Getting to that spot where I'm okay being a 5, I think, is really kind of the objective. That's where we want to get to. Not having to be the 10 in the room, which is where I can like to live, and not being the 1 in the room, because I'm definitely not the least, if you will, right? But just being that middle of the road, and that's a really tough place to try to get to.
I think it's a tough time to compare too, because everything's about comparison now. I personally think society, not to go on this social media tangent, but the way we're so plugged into our phones is bad for our heads anyways. And then, it's the social media aspect of it where, you're seeing everybody's highlight reel in their life.
I love that you said that.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, like, I yearn for a time where like damn car phones come back, because it is such a zap on everybody's mental health, whether they know it or not. And, like, we're kind of like, from the minute you wake up, your brain's like a pinball, where you just wake up, you check your phone, you're like, damn, this thing, that thing, I got to be worried about this thing. Hey, I'm supposed to be worried about this thing. Hey, this thing's going on. Those things have always been going on. And people have always been people, and they've always been imperfect. But now we're looking through this lens where everybody's damn perfect. And, it's really hard because I personally am really hard on myself, like very hard on myself. Like the advice I've been given is like, give yourself some grace, dude. And I think a lot of us are probably like that. And I think that's the whole thing is like, when you look around and you think everybody's got it good, like, I think a lot of people have their issues, man. And whether they fall into one of those 5 buckets and it's a big deal, or it's 3 of the 5 and they're just floundering. Like, I'm not saying everybody has to like walk around and tell everybody how depressed they are, but I do think you should like factor it in when you take a self-assessment and say like, oh, everybody's got their problems. You know what used to help me as a player? And I wish I thought more like this. I remember getting IR'd. I went from being a captain to being IR'd 2 years in a row. And, it just feels like you're worth nothing. And it feels like everybody in the building hates you. And, you walk around and people know you broke your leg or what have you. But in your head, you're like 2 weeks out. In my head, I'm thinking they think I'm soft, or they think I'm lazy, or I'm not coming back, or, dudes don't like me anymore. Which is a wild thing to say in retrospect, because most of my teammates really like me unless they weren't, so you walk around and you're so in your own head, and you think everybody's thinking about you, and not in a selfish way or a self-centered way. It is self-centered, but it's not like the prototypical self-centered greedy person. You're self-centered because you're centering your problems. And like, to me, when you start realizing that there's 53 men in the building, I'm just using a football example, the other 52 are all worried about what their insecurity is. Everybody's trying to pay the bills and make the team or make the play. You walk in on a Monday, everybody's got that play they don't want shown on the big screen. And you live in that world where you're walking around thinking, did they see the play on the big screen, metaphorically? And no, they're thinking about their play on the big screen. You know what I'm saying? And so if you can, I try to take that in life and say like, listen, like, things aren't perfect for me, but I'm not the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Like, the elephant in the room is here in my head, So if I can just defeat that kind of self-talk of like, hey, it's all you. When you walk in the room, everybody hates you. Like, when I'm not doing good, that's the way I feel. You got to, if you can shed that, I'll give you a football example, but shed that, because it's totally unhealthy.
So go just a little bit deeper on that, because, the game has changed so much. Like, you talk about guys being on IR, and the difference between, today, when a guy gets a ding upside the head, they take him in the blue tent, they take him inside, they put him through the protocol. Back in my day, you just got a stinger. Hey, how many fingers you see?
What
3.
city are we in?
Ready to go back in, and then they throw you back in the game.
Yeah.
And when you had injuries, the way that guys play through injuries now, I'm not saying that guys today aren't hurt, but I see guys a lot less willing to play hurt and injured than in my day. And I know for guys like me, it drives them crazy. What's the psychological effect beyond that? Like, you just kind of touched on it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, Seth, because like, I had played in 100 straight games. I'd played with high ankle sprains that I'd point of pride that like I didn't not play. Like, I shot it up, and I'd see guys around the league and, hey, high ankle sprain out 4 to 6 weeks, or hey, tibial plateau, and I'd suck my teeth, like kind of like I played with that. And it's a point of pride, dude. And that's the sickness that made us go, right? And there were times where I'd come home in camp and have bruises on my forehead and look at the mirror and like, yep, we got it done today. Like, and it's a necessary mindset, but to a fault, because I think both extremes are bad. Obviously, you don't want to go back in the game when you get hit in the head and you got a concussion. Like, science has kind of proven that over years. And I wish for my dad and for you that like they took better care of y'all. I grew up seeing my dad. One of the reasons that I didn't have kids to the end of my career was because I grew up seeing my dad in pain a lot. Grew up seeing my dad, hearing the stories about just like brutal stuff, like you know, trying to get to the hospital. My mom's taking my dad to the hospital, his hand shattered in a million places. He's puking in the car, like from the pain. Like that's football, right? And so you get this kind of warrior mentality about you. But one of my biggest regrets was playing hurt when I shouldn't have, right? And I did that out of insecurity, you know? So it's a balance where, like, yeah, would I have gone back and played on X, Y, and Z again? Yeah, absolutely. But the fourth or fifth one where I absolutely shouldn't have been playing, I went out there and embarrassed myself, got cut and put bad tape out, which I would never go away. And it might be 10 games of my career, but it changed the course of my career. End up in a great football city because if I don't get cut, I don't win Super Bowls. But individually, I think it's a perfect way to kind of put a bow on that part of it is, like, yeah, it's good that you want to play hurt. Like, more guys should want to. They should feel like, hey, I'm letting my teammates down if I don't do what I can. But don't let your insecurity drive you to make bad decisions. Like, I played on stuff sometimes because I was afraid of what people would think. And that's where you go down the wrong path. You should be self-motivated on that stuff. Have a code, live by it, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks, because eventually they're going to cut your ass. And nobody's going to say, damn, hey, tip of the cap, playing on that fracture, you came back a month earlier than they said you come back. We're going to give you some grace. No, they just say, hey, he looks like crap. Get him out of here. We got to go with the young guy. And so I think that's it. It's a balance, man. It's not black or white. You know, it's balance.
Raleigh, you know, I've been asking Chris a lot of questions, man. I'm sure you may have some questions that you may want to throw at him before we wrap up now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think, Chris, a question I have for you is, what drove, you know, this passion of yours surrounding supporting people struggling with mental health, right? You donated your entire salary one year to supporting people. Like, where did that come from for you?
Well, the off the field stuff, I think, like, number one, having a dad who played in the league and the NFL gave him a life that he didn't have and gave me a life that he didn't have. Like, my dad grew up with not really much. And, you know, he didn't have a great nuclear family situation. And, you know, like, you go to school, you hear stories about going to school and, like, you're passing your dad sleeping in a car or something. Like, it just, like, what he had to go through to put us in position to have, you know what I'm saying? I just always was like, man, when you have to give back. And my mom and dad always did that. So that's a no-brainer for me. But as far as, like, the mental health part of it, man, you just see it. Like, you know, in college, I lost a teammate because of it. I've lost friends because of it. I've seen friends go down terrible roads because of it, where they might still be here, but they're not here, you know? And I think also, like, having struggled with stuff myself. And I think also having good results when I, you know, like, for whatever reason, I've had a couple teammates be like, hey, I want to reach out to you to hit you with this. And I've had, you know, Lane's talked a lot about his stuff, right? Lane's a dear friend of mine. And I think watching Lane go through it and kind of open the conversation around it, like, I wish I had a Lane when I played. All my friends were just as sick as me. You know, we were just all, like, put our head down. But Lane is such an alpha, the best in the world at what he does. Great teammate, great human being, but he's also been vulnerable and solution oriented, you know? And so for me, that was really eye-opening to see him be that way. And I've gotten to the point now where, like, I'll go see Lane and I'll be like, hey, and I don't ask younger people for advice a lot, but Lane's somebody that, because he's been willing to talk about things, and I know how solution oriented he is, like, I'll talk to Lane if I got a problem. And when I played, and I consider all the guys I played with in St. Louis my brothers. You know, those guys, William Hayes, Robert Quinn, they were at my house 2 weeks ago. Those are my brothers. But we just never really talked about that stuff in a solution-minded way. Mm-hmm. We'd just be like, man, I'm not doing good. Me neither. this sucks, you know? And then now like things are to a place where I'm watching guys like, yeah, things are not good. And here's how you can fix it. And here's what worked for me. And so it's almost like a regret that I have for things not being better when I played that makes me want to help guys now if I can, peer to peer or what have you, and do my little part, because I've been through it where like, you know, people don't want to hear it, but you're like, damn, I'm not doing good. And people just don't believe it, you know? And then it takes something like, and I'm not saying I had problems like Marshawn Nealon, but what I'm saying is the Marshawn Nealon thing's a perfect example of you play for the Dallas Cowboys, you score a touchdown on Monday, a couple days later, you're dead, you know, and it's hard for people to believe something like that. And so I just, we got to look out for each other, man. Like we do. We got to keep doing it after we play. And so I want to do my part. It's good karma. It's the right thing to do. And people like Lane have kind of opened the conversation up.
Yeah. And no follow-up question to that. How do we expand beyond just guys in the league? And what I mean by that is how do we create a podium for guys that are in the league to speak to guys that idolize and worship, you know, fellas that are in the league? How do we, you know, as dudes that have found some solution, right?
Yeah.
Bring that solution to the world at large? How do we begin to be that, you know, taboo removing entity that allows people to understand it's okay to not be okay, but there absolutely is a way to become okay?
I think guys got to talk about things like this. Like guys got to have conversations like this one at a time, right? Like, you know, and to normalize things. And then also, you know, to kind of, and it can't be all, hey, I'm doing this with the NFL. It's good to do things with the league and be sponsored by the league and that sort of thing. But like guys have to just talk and be raw about it and have conversations with each other and set the example of like being vulnerable. You know, I also think like people in general are getting less and less empathetic in a weird way, you know, and I hate that because you see it, you know, like when you look at the tone that's set in our online, you know, discussions, or kind of like the way we treat each other as people, man, like our default is to be cynical and to be really hard on each other. And that sucks, man. You know, for dudes, I just feel like, and a lot of times I think there's a barrier where dudes sitting at home are like, those guys aren't like me. I'm not like those guys. They're not like me. They got easy lives. I'm working a 9 to 5. I'm working 40 hours a week. You know, I'm worried about my next paycheck. And yeah, all that stuff is dead true. And like, we're very lucky, but we still have these issues. And I think if we still have these issues, damn sure you're going to have to deal with these issues too, because your lives are in a lot of cases more uncertain and harder. Like we're so lucky and blessed. And I think more than anything, it proves that like, you know, money doesn't buy happiness. It really doesn't. Nobody wants to hear that when they want more of it. But I can tell you, I've got more than I know what to do with. And, you know, I think what buys happiness is the people you surround yourself with, the habits you engage in day to day, and just counting your blessings, man, like when you can. And so I don't know, like I think athletes can be at the forefront because of all the things we talked about, but you know, also people in general have to kind of let their guard down a little bit and have more empathy for each other, because we are all dealing with a lot. Like we weren't wired to live like this. You want to talk about like, you want to get some deep anthropology shit going on here?
Come on,
dude. We were hunters and gatherers recently, and all of a sudden we're plugged into screens 20 hours a day. And all of a sudden you've got a cell phone where it rings and all that. You know, it used to be if somebody needed something, they had to write you a letter or leave a voicemail. Now it's, I got 60 text messages. Everybody expects a reply, and everybody's got some version of that going on in their life. You know, just because I play in the NFL and like a lot of people depend on me for a lot of stuff, or I'm running a business or what, it's the same shit, different situation. And so I just think if dudes can start being like, hey, those athletes are not superheroes. Like, you can listen to what Lane Johnson has to say, or, I think about Darren Waller or something like that, or dudes that have had addiction problems, or whatever your problem you're going through. Now there's like an athlete that has spoken on it, a match for your issue. And so maybe it's being more organized about it. But I think more than anything, it's just one conversation at a time and trying to set a tone of having more empathy for each other.
Well, listen, man, what I appreciate, Chris, is you coming on and being transparent, because as dudes, we don't do that. And I think the more that other dudes begin to see that, the more that they'll let down their guard, pull down the veil, and ask for help when and where they need help. Raleigh, listen, man, tell everybody where they can find Recovery Unplugged, because you guys are in multiple different states. You're doing a lot of good work. Just kind of give, my viewers, a heads up as to where they see, there's a number on the screen every single week, but kind of give them some life, to where you guys are, and the things that you're doing as we wrap.
Yeah, absolutely. And our website was down at the bottom, recoveryunplugged.com. That's simple. I really think the place you can see, because I'm a big believer in attraction rather than promotion. And what I mean by that is if you jump on to social media, all of us are on social. If you jump on our Facebook, jump on our Instagram or our TikTok, you can see what recovery actually looks like, whether that's for mental health challenges or addiction challenges. And what I mean by that is when I got sober at 19, I thought my life was over. I thought I was going to be bored out of my mind. I was going to yell at kids for jumping on my grass, and I was never going to have fun again. And my life is the polar opposite of that today. This year I've been in, 25 plus countries, 25 states, 4 countries, just doing what I do for a living, which is trying to help people find solution. And so with that, we capture that essence on our social media. And so if you're wondering, can my life be better? Is this something that really could be for me? The answer is hell yes. And just come take a peek. Just take a look at what it is. And so the states we're in, Seth, we're in South Jersey, right across the bridge from Philly in Cherry Hill. We are licensed in Pennsylvania as well, the whole state, for our telehealth program. And then we've got Washington, D.C., we've got South Carolina, Charleston proper is where we are there. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So we've got 15 physical brick and mortar buildings, and we've got another little over 300 people that come to our program every single day through telehealth, kind of similar to what we're doing here, just dudes talking to dudes and finding solution to the challenges. But, our big belief is that music is medicine, and we use music as a catalyst for change in everything that we do. So we've all got that one song, and Chris, Seth, I'm sure you guys had your song you both listened to before you took your headphones out and you were getting ready to run through the tunnel, right? I know I did when I was playing ball. So I'd love, just as we end, what was that song for you? And I know that's a big question.
That's a good one. I can remember. I used to listen to a lot, but I used to try to sync up. There were 2 songs. There was Stairway to Heaven, because my dad said back in the day we used to listen to that in high school. He goes, we used to turn all the lights off and listen to Stairway to Heaven. And obviously, if you know Stairway to Heaven, it takes about 5 minutes before it really starts ripping. But if you can time up that 5-6 minute portion right before you go out. And then me and Fletcher Cox used to always listen to Death Row by Chris Stapleton, which is an off the wall deal. But me and Fletch it was like appointment listening for us. We wait until the last minute, cue it up, go stand in the corner. And man, you miss those days, don't you, Seth?
Yeah.
Hey, man, listen, I have my song. I certainly miss it. When I get the hair on my neck stands up anytime I hear it. So mine was Snap, I Got the Power. And tell you how old I am, I used to have the little Walkman CD player. That was
that's awesome.
Dude, I'm trying to tell you, man. But yeah, that was my song. Because, I got the power. That mentality going out on the field.
And listen, the reality is that all humans have that song, right? It's just making sure they they find that version of themselves. And that's what we do at Recovery Unplugged, is we help them get back to that version where they can have something that they're living for. And music really helps kind of drive that. And so thank you guys for sharing that.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Riley. Appreciate it, man.
Riley Osbourne from Recovery Unplugged, Chris Long. I thank you guys for your time. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you guys and your families. All right. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Seth. Merry Christmas, fellas. Keep up the good work, Riley.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, as usual, folks, that wraps this special edition of the Recovery Unplugged Mental Health Roundtable. Happy holidays to you guys. Let me see. As usual, be good to each other and take care of each other. But most important, make sure you love each other. I will see you guys on another Seth Joyner podcast coming to you soon. All right? Peace.
This holiday, Verizon's got the craziest deal ever with iPhone 17, iPad, and Apple Watch. All on them. But no getting it if you're naughty. You just ate. Don't worry. We know what list you're on. I'm always watching. Always watching. Not always. Boundaries.
Get the powerful new iPhone 17, iPad, and Apple Watch all for $0. No trade-in needed on any plan.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There is a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
Since 1893, Weber Display and Packaging has been Pennsylvania's leading manufacturer of corrugated packaging and displays. We're family owned with 4 Philadelphia locations, 2 converting facilities, a warehouse, and a fulfillment center. Designed through delivery, we exceed customer needs. Weber Display and Packaging. Our core values drive everything we do. Come join our team.
At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
Gentlemen, are you ready for a wardrobe update? Introducing Divine Nine's Custom Menswear, your clothier for truly unique, custom-made threads. With Divine Nine, you can design your own one-of-a-kind suit, jacket, slacks, shirts, golf pants, and shorts, perfectly handcrafted by our skilled artisans who will bring your vision to life. Prepare to stand out from the crowd with Divine Nine's Custom Clothier, official clothier of Seth Joyner. Custom clothing made for you.
At MidPenn Bank, we believe in the power of community. We're not just another bank, we're your bank. We're also your neighbor. For over 150 years, we've been helping dreams come true, financing projects that make a difference locally. From small businesses to community centers, we're here to support what matters most to you, donating time and resources to strengthen the Philadelphia region. And when Philly's favorite superstars need a bank they can trust, they turn to MidPenn Bank just like you can. MidPenn Bank. Stronger communities, stronger futures. Let's build something great together.
Pride, passion, and persistence. These are the values that drive us all at Ron Jaworski Golf. We strive to deliver outstanding conditions as well as playability for golfers of all ages and abilities. Our championship golf courses offer a variety of challenges from a link-style walk along the river to an escape into the pines and everything in between. My team at Ron Jaworski Golf is committed to delivering memorable experiences every single day. See all we do at ronjaworskigolf.com.